let's record. So today we're going to be getting into a program from a gentleman who's trying to get stronger. He is not willing to change his diet, and we're going to take a look at some ACSM risk stratifications first. So let's read the case example from, we always start off, most important thing, what do we got to do? Besides drink your beer.
Foam roll.
No, Brandon, I'm not talking about the workout. I'm talking about we got to give him a name. We got to give him a name. So what's our guy's name today?
Ulysses.
Ooh, so maybe we're going to call him Mr. Grant. How about that? Because I'm not going to be able to spell that one properly. So we got Mr. Grant, 32-year young male, 5'11", 215 with a BMI of 29, profession software engineer. He wants to reach his ideal weight, 78 kilos or 172 pounds. Who are the experts in here who can convert that? How do you get 172 out of 78?
Divide by 2.2.
Good. So, or flip-flop, you times it by 2.2. So if you really want to be a smart ass, if anyone's ever asking how much you're benching, and you got the bar and a 45, technically that's not 135. It's going to be a little less than that, because you'd be looking at 20 kilos per side and then a 20 kilo bar, so 60 kilos, 144.4, a little less. So I decided to get a personal trainer to work closely with me and help me lose weight, looking to find a fitness sweet spot that can be a change in lifestyle rather than quick weight loss. I'd like to reach this. I'd like to reach this. That's why I like to reach this. I'm going over it now. Ideal weight without dieting. I'm ready. I'm already eating healthy, but I'm sedentary. I lack the motivation and drive to go to the gym. They say if we do it for 40 days, it becomes a habit. And what better way than show up and see what happens? I have high blood pressure. I get dizzy very easily. I have not worked out in 10 years. I was in the best shape of my life when I was undergrad in college. I used to walk a lot to get to the bus stops, classes, and to the grocery store. When I started working, my job is sedentary, and I stopped taking the bus and hence stopped walking. I put on between 20 and 30 pounds since then. So Mr. Grant, very common scenario, and unfortunate that he's packed on the weight just in a short period of time. He's only 32, and he has a long life ahead of him. And so with the ACSM, for the folk that are in here today, we got a nice size of 8 to 10 of you. Were you guys first exposed to ACSM, NSCA, NASM, ISSA, ACE? What were you first exposed to? We got NASM for Sarah, NASM for Crystal.
Are we talking about just like the first thing we came across, or?
Yeah.
CS for me, actually.
Okay, nice. So NSCA and the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. In my experience, you've seen this huge change from the last 20 years of ACSM and NSCA. ACE was like the grandfathered in, like in the 70s and 80s. That was one of the first ones that people would get. So whenever you hear ACE, you kind of think of like old school. Or it's also pretty big internationally. So in India, as well as the UK, ISSA and ACE are doing very well over there. But NASM just recently tapped into that market as well. So National Academy of Sports Medicine, they have done the best job at getting in front of people. And I love their ubiquitousness, where when people think of becoming a trainer, they think of getting a certification via NASM. And so I think it's important for you guys to be diverse and understand the different certifications and just associations that are out there. So NASM is profit. They don't have any journals or scientific literature that they put out there. ACSM and NSCA do. So with NSCA, you have the National Strength and Conditioning Association. They have the top strength and conditioning journal in the world, the JSSR, Journal Strength, Journal Strength Conditioners, and JSCR. And that's one of the better articulations that are out there. ACSM works very closely with the medical industry, and they have a lot lot of journals, articles that are out there that relate specific to medicine. And so I'm going to give us a hypothetical scenario with Mr. Grant here, and we're going to take a look at what an ACSM would look like. So you would get, where's my photo? Here we go. You would get a, and this is, I just wrote an article. I'm finishing it on my predictions in the next 10 years. I really do believe that we're going to see a change within fitness, that we are going to be at the beginning, at the forefront of obesity. But we're going to be more educated and be able to, I mean, let's whoever's the oldest, I think I'm probably oldest in here, but if you can recall back, when I had a car phone when I was growing up, it literally was a car, and it was like a phone that you put down and like a little thing. Like that was like cool. And that's how you talk to people in 8th grade. Now kids have this thing. You have to realize that this is going to be that car phone, like it or not. But 10, 15 years ago, people were like, oh, wow, you had that iPhone thing. So I believe that we're going to see some type of community like wellness center where you will go in there, be able to work with a nurse practitioner. They'll very quickly be able to draw your blood and put it through a centrifuge, spin that sucker out, and you're going to get a report just like this. And as a trainer, I'm going to be able to go through it. And so this is it's kind of cool because it's international, which just shows you that it's the same in Italy that it is in Europe, wherever. So this stuff is universal. And so I'm able to look at this and within reason, make a decision that is appropriate for my client. So think of it as I'm at this fork where I can say, you need to go meet with Dr. Bill. He's going to have an appointment already for you in 30 minutes. Or let me take you through the assessment, and then we're going to do some pattern screening, and then we're going to go through the workout. And maybe that's wishful thinking, but I think it should be a requirement. The trainer should be able to look at this stuff and understand what's going on. And so we have the American College of Sports Medicine. They have 8 risks that you need to know. And it's going to be your age, your family history, mom and dad when they had a heart attack, smoking, obesity, blood glucose levels, triglycerides, blood pressure, and what did I miss? I said glucose, hyperlipidemia, I think, and if you're sedentary or not. And so there was something that Mr. Grant told us, a couple things. And by reading that, we would need to say, okay, Mr. Grant, because of this, we can't actually train you. We need to pass you off. And what was the biggest red flag that Mr. Grant told us?
High blood pressure, gets dizzy.
Now, so high blood pressure I can work with. I can train you because the best thing for high blood pressure is cardio. But the fact that he said he was dizzy, that's a huge red flag. So I need to ask him some more questions, and I'm not just going to freak out. So, Mr. Grant, it's not very normal to get dizzy, so talk about that. When do these episodes typically occur? And if he's just like, I'm at work, 3 o'clock, and all of a sudden I start getting real woozy, and I think I'm going to pass out. Okay, now do you eat afterwards? Have you not eaten for a while? Are you fasting, a bunch of caffeine? Are we smoking? I want to learn and gather as much information, because maybe it's just periodically, maybe it happened the last couple of weeks because of stress. Maybe he's coming back, coming off of a cold or a flu or something. A lot of different things could cause little episodes like that. But if it's something that's been happening regularly, I'm just going to ask probably the most important question that we should ask every client is, when was the last time you saw a physician? And if it's, 32, what do you guys think? Do you think he's been to a doctor recently?
No.
Nope.
Probably not. And if he says he hasn't been to one in a couple of years, 3, 4+ years, that's it. I can talk to you about your goals. I can do a screen if I want to any injuries that you have, but I'm not going to take you through any actual physical exertion today because you need to meet with a doc. And lucky for you, let me pull up my calendar, and we have an appointment in 15 minutes. So you can go see him. They check him out, and they're able to give us the report that he's okay to work out or he's not okay to work out. So there's certain things that I'm okay with training, and that's going to be those first 8 that I just listed. And then there's metabolic disease, which would be a thyroid problem, kidney problems, or liver problem or type 1 or type 2 diabetes. I'm not training them. Refer out cardiovascular disease as well as pulmonary disease. I'm going to refer out. I need medical clearance for that. But then there's a list of 8 that I'm not messing with. Someone comes in, they smoke, I'll take you through a workout. I'm okay with that. You're overweight, you're obese, you're morbidly obese. I just had a student today send me a report, a body fat analysis of one of their clients, and it was 48% body fat, and it was a 49 BMI. That is high. Didn't beat me. The highest one I ever had was over 56 on BMI. So that's concerning, but I'll still train you. I'm all right with it because I know that I'm just going to take it very, very light, and exercise is going to be beneficial for you. But when you have things like dizziness, when you have shortness of breath for no apparent reason, you have pain over your chest, you have a heart murmur, something that a physician would need to diagnose, but you could check their pulse. And if you hear something like this, that's not normal. Again, I'm not a doctor. Send that stuff out. Make sure your ticker is doing well. It's it's the #1 most preventable disease in the United States. So if we can screen that, send more people to us because we're educated. And so there's a condition called tachycardia, Tachy, cardia, tachycardia. Does anyone know what that is?
Heart rate above 100.
Good. Again, I'm not going to work with you unless you took a pre-workout or a bunch of caffeine or you're hungover or something like that. I'm not going to train someone who has a resting heart rate greater than 100. That's just not normal. And so let's take a look at Mr. Grant's levels. So glucose levels, anything greater than 110 is considered a risk factor. He's at 82 milligrams per deciliter. So that would be okay. And you'll see that I think this is, excuse me my ignorance, but I think this is Spanish of some sort. 70 to 99, that's what I can grasp. That's gonna be the normal range. So he's in that normal range, that's fine. This is gonna be off of levels of urine, I believe. That stuff is irrelevant for us. That's just testing your kidney functioning and your liver. Total cholesterol, anything greater than 200 is considered a risk according to ACSM. So you see right here, anything, we wanna be less than 190 for adults. This must be kids of some sort, adolescents for less than 170. So the fact that he is 254, that's a little concerning. I think it is like your blood is like goop, where we should have a nice flow, but it's a little thicker than I'd like. So let's get a doctor to check it out to make sure there's no underlying conditions. Maybe we need to get an angiogram to make sure there's not any blockage of the heart. Yeah, those are things I want to take a look at. Cholesterol, HDL. Now here's an interesting thing. Now the levels of normalcy are 45 to 55. See if they have that range. So they just say basically less than 40 is a risk according to ACSM, and they're agreeing with that here. We want to be greater than 40. 45 to 55 is normal. But here's a cool thing about HDLs. Once they get above 60, that's really, really good. So it negates something. So the fact that he has really high HDLs, it's like a green light where it's like, oh, that's really good. You got 130% on a test, like that's bonus points. So even if he smoked or if he was obese, like he is borderline obese and he has those levels, they call HDL the healthy ones, the high density lipoproteins. Think of those like vacuum cleaners. They're going to go in there and they're going to clean up that blood. So that's something that I like seeing. But then down here, again, we're going to get 158 on LDL. So less than 130 is, greater than 130 is going to be a risk factor. Less than 100 is what we'd like to see. You can kind of interpret that within reason over here. So maybe it's just saying some type of risk. People may be at risk for lower than 50 or 70. I haven't seen that before, but that'd be interesting. But I think this is important stuff because we can interpret it within reason to our clients. We're not doctors. I'm not saying you're going to go on medicine, you're going to go off of medicine, but I can let my client know that your blood levels, it's called a blood chemistry test, which I'd also like to see C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker. So people say they're inflamed, screw with them. Oh, what's your CRP at? Well, what do you mean? Your C-reactive protein, that's what we test to see if your body's inflamed. Well, I just know I'm inflamed. What do you mean? You're taking a buzzword and you're just putting it out there, inflamed. So you got to go get that tested to see if you really are inflamed. So the fact it's 250 or above, not the best. This 84 is really good, so it would negate one of those, the 250. But again, I see the 158 plus. He definitely doesn't have optimal blood levels. And so what I would do is then consult with my RD, who would be on the team as well. And I say, okay, so let me know what you're telling him to eat. Probably going to be less consumption. So focus more on high protein foods, foods that are phytochemical dense, so like darker in colors, beets and fruits and vegetables. Focus on those foods, do it for a good month or so, and then we'll recheck it to see where those levels are at. But these levels are not optimal by any means. The good thing is that the 84 is, because usually what you'd see is like less than 30, and that would be like, oh shit, this is like a perfect recipe for a heart attack because high blood pressure. So they go hand in hand. That's why they'll refer to them as comorbidities, is that he's obese pretty much. He's right on the cusp. That's a bad thing. And on top of that, he's high blood pressure. So 140 over 90 is considered stage 1 hypertension. Maybe he's at 150, maybe he's at 160, whatever. The higher you go, the worse it is. So now you have high blood pressure. Let's use my beer as an example. So you have our pipes, that would be your coronary artery. It's going around the heart, cardiac tissue, and it's supplying the blood to the heart. Well, what happens is it begins to get blocked. So if I put my finger in my beer, not as much blood flow can come through. But even worse is if we put a lot of pressure behind it. Then at this is a nectarine ale from Sierra Nevada. That's my hometown, so I had to try it. But right where this is right here, what happens is too much pressure is building up at the end, and then you can get that pop, and that pop is going to be a heart attack. So this is just a perfect recipe for that, and I wouldn't feel comfortable training him, me personally. So I would send him off, even though that he has those HDLs that are a little higher. I would want to make sure that either an angiogram, whatever the doc suggests to do, that as a 32-year-old, these aren't levels with the other things that he's saying. That dizziness could be the fact that he's on the verge of having a heart attack. So the last thing you ever want to do is train someone. They have a heart attack, and there you go, first person to have a heart attack. Exciting, right? No, not at all. So I would want a medical clearance from Mr. Grant. After I get that medical clearance in the future, let's hope that we would get it in a respectable time frame, meaning like a fast, expedited process, like maybe even be an hour or so. So I could train him later on tonight. I have a 6 o'clock available, go get everything checked out. I get the green light, then I'll be okay to train him. Right now, you're looking at if this guy were to come in, I would say, Mr. Grant, unfortunately today I cannot train you. I need you to schedule an appointment with your doc. He would go in there, he would work with his doc, and then I would get that medical clearance back from the doc, and then I could train him. So that's the importance of a PAR-Q, physical activity readiness questionnaire. Now, who could explicate and regurgitate the main goals that Mr. Grant had? Who could tell me? Reading comprehension, listening comprehension. Not all at once.
Lose 20-ish pounds without changing his diet.
Good. So we have our core patterns of movement: squat, which is more knee dominant, quads. We have a unilateral, which would be one leg, which could be a step up or a lunge. Hinge, which would be more hip dominant in the glutes. Push, we have a horizontal push, we have a vertical push, and then we have a horizontal pull and a vertical pull. When we pull, what two muscles are primarily working?
Back and biceps.
Good. Back / biceps. How about when we push?
Chest and tries.
Good. As I said earlier, the hinge would be more glutes. Unilateral would just be one leg at a time. Squat would be more knee dominant in the quads. So when I design a program for Mr. Grant, typically what I would like to do are circuits of 3. But because of the condition that he is in, I'm going to take out my other core pattern, and I would then substitute the accessory. So typically what I would see here, he's a guy, so we're going to stereotype. What do you think he wants to improve?
Bench.
Yeah. So chest, arms, flatten out his tummy. So when you look at the lower body, and I do a squat, a lot of work on my heart. So the likelihood of him getting real woozy, dizzy, and the fact that he experiences that is going to be very, very high. So I would probably want to hold off on that for now, just to see what his condition state is like. And I want to do something regressed for an upper body pattern, and I'd want to do a push. But I want, as I said, I want to regress it. So I start out on the wall or a bench. I'll do a push up. Now, you may be thinking like, that's way too easy. He can easily do 32. He can do that. I don't care. I'm going to start with the basics. If someone comes to me and I'm looking at a child, I just watched that movie with George Clooney, you know, Girls in Space, and she doesn't speak. So like this girl pops up in front of you. I'm not just going to assume that she knows math. I'm not going to assume how much math she knows. I need to ask questions. So pretend like they can talk. They will give you that answer. What are you capable of? I'm going to ask them, you know, 10 years ago, what were you capable of? Oh, I could do a lot of push-ups. They always fabricate and do more. So, all right, let me see what you're capable of. Let's go to the wall real quick. Easy. All right, let's go to this bench right here. Easy. Nice. Good job. Let's go to the ground, Mr. Grant. And then I'm going to check out his form. So I just did 2 small regressions, and I can see what he's capable of. And then because he's in that position and he has high blood pressure already, I'm just going to keep him down there and do a plank. So let's say that he was in better shape that we thought, even with the conditions that he has. He did some push-ups. And let's say that he could do 10 of them. I'm going to have him go to his knees, come back, rest a little bit. I'm going to talk to him a little bit. So these are things I'm going to challenge you to do every day. Our goal is to help you get to what you said. And my challenge for you while you're at work as a software engineer, how many times a day do you think you could hop down on the ground and do 10 push-ups like you just did? So let's say he did 10 and he was kind of exhausted. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4. Great. I'm going to challenge you to do it 3 times per day. And I'm going to text you. And if you can do this for the first week, I'm going to throw in a gold star and I'll give you a free session on Saturday. Do something like that to make it fun. So for a plank, I'll do it for 30 seconds. And I would do this for 3 rounds. Normally, like I said before, if you was one of us, if it was Kyle or Brandon or a guy that wants to improve his upper body, I'd normally do a core pattern such as a push into another core pattern like a pull, and then do the accessory. But because I'm uncertain with where he's at, I'm going to regress that and make it even easier. I would like to see 10 plus reps, but be mindful, the more reps you do, the more work it is on the heart. So I'm probably going to keep it at 10 reps exactly. So do your set of push-ups, and then we'll do a plank, then we're going to rest until he's ready to go again. And then after that, we're going to go into the second round. Maybe have him do 8 this time, just to, you know, I don't want him to always go to fatigue because he's going to probably get woozy by the end of the workout. Maybe have him hold the top for a second, and then we'll do that plank. And now in this last round, I have him do a push-up, and maybe he touches my shoe, and he does another push-up, and he touches my shoe. Each set, I'll make it a little bit harder. I wouldn't go to like bands or anything like that for now for this first workout. So for that first one, he did well. If we did a push, I'm probably going to do a pull next. And because of with what I saw, I would just assume he wasn't capable of doing pull-ups. And I really even wouldn't do eccentrics. It'd probably be a little too much for him right now just because of the condition that we gathered. These are all hypotheticals, right? So I assumed proper when we did meet him. This was in Dublin a few years back. And he had terrible upper body strength. He could not do 10 push-ups, only could do eccentrics, so we didn't do pull-ups. But what we ended up doing for a pull, single arm rows, SA rows. So we did 10 per side, and then we switched, and then we went into side planks. So a regular plank, then we did a side plank. Well, notice that this isn't crazy, right? Like you're like, is this really even a workout? You guys are gonna be so surprised when you start working with really deconditioned individuals. As long as you clear the expectations in the beginning. So Mr. Hank, because you have, not Hank, I don't want to say Hank, Grant, because you have A, B, C, D condition, we're gonna start out real light. You know, you said you haven't worked out in 10 years, so it'd be like me when you're in college, say you played a sport, telling you that you're going to be a great football player in one practice. It takes time. So I just want to set realistic expectations that today's workout is not going to change your physique. My goal is to get you just a little bit sore tomorrow. I don't want you to be so sore where it deters you from showing up again. because your number one workout that you can do is the next one. And just reiterate that, because he's going to have a mindset like every other American where, oh, I got to go hard today. And then you kick his ass 30 minutes in, he passes out. And then he's like, oh, fuck this. I'm not going to train. This isn't what I wanted. This is way too hard. So set realistic expectations. So we did a push, chest and tri. We did a pull, back and by. And if you feel like it's appropriate, then you could go into a lower body leg exercise. And I'll ask him, how are you feeling right now? Do you have some more in the tank? And he's, oh, I'm doing awesome. And I would do a goblet squat. So that's a squat pattern. I'll put a bench behind him, give him some weight here, probably start out with 15 or 20s, and then have him sit back, nice and slow and controlled, making sure that his big toe, little toe, heel on the ground, that his knees aren't coming in, and he has knee valgus. Make sure that his chin is tucked, not looking up, making sure that I can see his chest. If you have like a symbol on it, nice and proud, I don't want to be caved under. And I'm checking him out in the 3D. When he's done with that, I'm going to take the weight from him. Then I'm going to ask him, all right, Mr. Grant, if a genie were to pop out of a lamp right now and give you one wish for the perfect body, what would it be? What muscle would it be? Maybe he says biceps, maybe he says triceps, maybe he says traps, who knows? Let's say that he says traps, he throws a little curveball at you. Great, so what we're going to do are face pulls. And this is going to be good for him because he's at his desk, he's probably going to be hunched over like this, and typically you'll find people that are constantly in that position, they may experience some type of tightness up in here. So I want to have him pull to his face, but more importantly, not drive with the traps. The traps have been shown to be neurally activated quicker than the other muscles when you do a pull. So a common thing you'd see is this when he pulls up and back. So I want to come behind him, push his shoulders down, drive with your elbows and back. Nice and slow on the way. And we're taking pretty long rest periods, probably 2 to 3 minutes. I know a lot of you, because we exercise regularly, you're probably thinking like, this is not that hard of a workout. You're going to be so surprised. And I remember Gil was my trainer at the time. He took this guy, his name was Sandeep. He took him through his workout. And he was a boxer, Gil was. And he wrote out this crazy warm up and the workout and everything. I said, all right, Gil, scratch all this. We're going to do real basic warm up. We're going to do some knee pulls. And you're going to be so surprised of what he's capable of. He's like, no, Chris, I really think that he's going to do some, he had him doing karaoke. And so I came over and I met with Sandeep before. I said, Sandeep, I want you just to do a little test for me real quick. Can you do some lateral shuffles for me? And it was one of the most incredible experiences for Gil, because Gil was like, holy shit, like, I got to make sure of all this program that you designed for me. Because when he did some side shuffles, his first, I'm not joking, it was like this. So do some side shuffles. Sandeep was like this. He went so slow and it was so uncoordinated because of how conditioned he is to be in the sagittal plane. It's like his brain is just not used to talking to those muscles in the frontal plane. And I saw Gil's eyes, they just got huge. He's like, holy crap. I'm like, do you think he would have been able to do karaoke? He's like, whoa, not even close. He would just fall over. So we take a quote unquote young guy at 32 with all this preconditioned stuff for a heart attack, keep it light. Best case scenario, he surprised you. And at the end right here, you can do some type of little circuit for fun, if you want to call it, or get the sweat, whatever it is. Get him going with, feeling good at the end of a workout. You're going to be so surprised when you train out of shape folk like this. So you have stuff in your back pocket, knowing that asking him questions, we're not babying him, like, are you okay? Are you okay? You're just watching and asking him questions. Oh, so talk to me a little about what's your job? What do you do? Oh, you work over at Sun Micro System, something like that he was working on. Tell me what's your normal day like, blah, blah, blah. And if he was huffing and puffing just from this first circuit, you're like, whoa, okay, no, we're not in any hurry. If he were to impress you by that third circuit, he's doing really well. If you wanted to add in another thing here, you could, but you have that capability. Start simple and then know how to progress. So it's like almost like this is easy. This one would be more moderate. And then this is when you could challenge him. And when I say challenge him, I'm not doing like a 1 rep max. I'm still doing 10 to 12 reps. Maybe he surprises you and you do some bicep curls into jumping jacks for 2 or 3 rounds. That'll be okay. Gil had to stop the session about 45 minutes because he got a little woozy, and he stretched with him for 15 minutes at the end. Now, this assessment with Shanadeep was well over, this was in 2012 or 13. But this was a really good experience for the trainer at the time because what he put on paper was just way too much. And so you still go in with a plan, and the plan is going to be core pattern, accessory. You do that for 3 rounds, and then you move to the next circuit. Do that for 3 rounds in the next circuit with the intent to hit these core patterns. For men, we typically like to do more upper body. For women, we typically like to do more lower body. I'm just stereotyping here, but you're going to find when you train these individuals, that's going to be typically what you're going to do. So then if someone comes in, it's like when they're doing an assessment with them, in my mind, my program, my template is just going to start taking stuff out because they're not ready for it. Or in other cases that we've done in the past with these programming, you find out they're in better shape. Well, then you're just going to look at the acute variables. You're going to look at volume and intensity. If you want to add in some cardio, you're going to be able to create a program for him that day that will be appropriate. So this is where we started out. And the next time that he comes in, ask how he's feeling. Now, if this is the first time meeting with him, you need to follow up. Say you train him at 4 o'clock today. He's done at 5. Next time he's going to come in would be Thursday. So shoot him a text message tomorrow. Hey, just wanted to check in. How you feeling? Make sure you get your water in. Want to confirm our appointment for the next day. That's that service side of the equation. And then when he comes in, you ask him, how you feeling? Make sure to eat before. Remember last time you got a little woozy, have a banana before. And then they're going to ask you questions about what to eat afterwards and so forth, protein shakes, whatever you believe in. And then it's about consistency. Get him to keep on showing up. But then each workout, it's not completely different. That's where a lot of trainers go wrong is workout 2 is we have them doing TRX this and we have them doing lunges over here and hip thrust. And you throw a complete curveball in new exercise. That's that motor behavior and movement competency that he's not going to learn. So maybe the next workout, instead of doing a single arm row, I do a dumbbell row. And then instead of doing a side plank or a regular plank, I decide to do a farmer's walk. It would still be a core-like exercise, not core pattern, just a core for his core and also his traps. And then instead of doing push-ups, I introduce them to an incline press with dumbbells. And then I go back down to a plank. And then last but not least, we're going to go back into a squat and we're going to do a face pull, but now I'm going to do some bridges with them. So you just, each time you progressively overload, you show some new exercises, but you also keep some exercises from the prior workout. And as long as you communicate that with them, and I think you're going to experience this a lot, your clients are like, oh, I love variety. You need to nip that in the butt. Or when trainers say, well, what happens when a client tells you they like doing all these exercises? You got to flip it back on them because who's in charge? I'm the trainer. I know how to get in the best shape of your life. And you will get there, but that's why we can have fun with these accessories. Ask the clients what they want. That's where you can entertain them. You guys have any questions about this program today?
Yes, I got a question about this is something from the NASM textbook. I know how you feel about NASM, but they say a trainer with like any type of heart condition, right? Not necessarily supposed to do any isometrics because of that. How do you feel about that? And because I see you have it here, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what they told me.
Yeah, well, the reason being is typically when you do isometrics, they're going to associate that with what's referred to as the brain fart. What's the technical name for holding your breath? Who wants to help me? What's the technical name for it? Valsalva maneuver, thank you. The Valsalva maneuver is like, you're holding your breath like that. No, when he's doing a plank, I can have him breathe in and breathe out. So just when you notice how when I did a push, he's still on the ground, we went into a plank, I didn't have him do a push up into a squat because that can make him a little woozy. So the reason that they put that in there is just they're associating a plank or any type of iso hold with the Valsalva maneuver, which is holding your breath.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, if the person didn't have the blood pressure issue, but we're still, very deconditioned.
Mhm.
Would you add in the second core pattern, or would you sort of start here and then see how it goes and then add to it later if needed?
If he didn't have the high blood pressure and he didn't have the dizziness and he just had the cholesterol issues, then I would add in, I would probably maybe even do this one first and then see how he does. And on this one, maybe I would go into like a bridge and then get that hinge in there. So upper lower, which would be still moderate, easy, moderate. And then if you're just doing it's super easy, then here you can do a squat into bench press or landmine press into, maybe you want to throw in there cardio, jumping jacks. That's how I would progress it. So easy, moderate to challenging. So you guys have any questions about programming in general? And I love stuff like D'Artagnan's asking about NASM. It's great for you guys to experience the different programming variables. Just because we do it one way, it doesn't mean it's the only way. But I think a great coach will have a reasoning behind the exercises. So if you're training this guy and you have in there battle ropes and jumps and stability ball, squat, curl, press, and I ask you, well, why did you program that there? Well, to increase his stability. Well, can you do it other ways? Because you're going to find that his coordination probably sucks. So when you put him on a stability ball, what would be the purpose of that? We got to weigh both sides of that equation. So why is that exercise there? So that's the big thing that I'm going to ask. Someone asked about if you decide a client needs to see a doctor before they start training him, how do you go about telling him that without making him feel defeated before he starts? Yep, that's a great question. It's all in your wording. So Mr. Grant, so the whole purpose of today is to screen out any coronary artery disease or risk factors for having any type of heart problems. And so I'm going to look at your blood pressure. I'm going to do some measurements for your body fat percentage, and we're going to see how you do on that. And then I'm going to go through a little bit of a workout. And so today will take about 60 to 90 minutes. And so when I do the blood pressure, first thing that pops up is 155 over 100. All right, so Mr. Grant, a little higher than normal. What we'd like to see is less than 120, less than 80. You did mention before that you do have high blood pressure, so let's talk a little bit more about that. When was the last time you saw a physician? I don't do that. Any particular reason why? I don't believe in it, or I'm young, I'm 32. All right, so let me pull up a chart really quick for you. And I love doing this, and you can actually show them because it's like you have the trainer who's we're not medical professionals. So when you actually show them, I always keep this one at the gym too. I like this guy because it's pretty easy to read, right? Okay, so my levels are 125 over 75. You're at 150 over 100. So what do you think this orange and red indicate? So it's like you're driving on the freeway and you start seeing smoke coming out of your engine. Do you think it's best to kind of pull over to address the situation? That's all I'm doing here. I want to make sure that you're good on the inside. They call it the silent killer. You could have clogged arteries and you could be working out. Next thing you know, you pass out and we're making out because I'm giving you mouth to mouth. And that's something I do not want to do. And so I'm looking out for your best interest. And there may be a time when a client gets a little frustrated. Well, I had one person that did in my whole entire life. And I was like, it was a lady like in her 50s. And she wasn't in terrible shape. Her blood pressure was 165 over 100. And it's like, miss, I suggest we go see a doctor. I can't take the rest of the workout. Luckily, if you're working for me at Shell Fitness, you just blame it on me. That's what you do. So you let them know it's like, unfortunately, due to the, HIPAA or whatever you want to say, but the rules here at this gym, my boss won't let me train you if your blood pressure is greater than 140 over 90. The only way I can do it is less than 140 over 90. So I apologize, but so if this is you by yourself, you can always use your best judgment. You can just ignore this and train them. But if they were to have a heart attack and you do not have information filled out, they don't sign a waiver, that liability is going to go to you. And if he survives and he goes to the physician and he tells him that I had high blood pressure, but the trainer was doing the stuff inappropriately, then you know, there's definitely wrongfully death lawsuits that have been out there. Maybe that'll be a good one to look at next with the ACSM, because there's some fun ones on there that freak you guys out. Any other questions? All right, so that is Mr. Grant.
Oh, sorry, Chris, I did have a question. For the goblet squat, you said you put a bench behind him. This is probably very technical, but are you having him sit, like actually sit on the bench, or are you just leaving it there to give him sort of the cue of how low to go, and then like as backup in case, you know? Exactly.
That's, you're going to experience with training that little things that are just going to blow your mind. And as a new trainer, you're going to learn the wrong way because you're like, oh shit, they fell down. So the more that you train, it's just a nice little putting the safety wheels on for a youngster. It's just worst case scenario, they fall down on the bench versus they fall down on the ground. And it is also to help indicate the proper depth. But you do not have to now. If you guys didn't want to do the goblet, could you do a leg press? Sure. Could you do a TRX squat? Sure. Could you do a back squat? Try it. And this is what's important is you guys will have the tools to experiment. It's not like you have to do it this way, but as long as you experiment safely, where this is what really frustrates me is when a trainer with this guy, the very first thing is they have him take a med ball and start throwing it against a wall. Like that's just not appropriate. You're doing an explosive movement on someone who's obviously very deconditioned, where you have them do a burpee in the beginning or a squat into a step up and a jumping jacks. Like that's way too much, too fast. And I think this is where people get frustrated as the client is no one explains to them the process. We sell packages. Oh, here's 12 sessions. It's going to be $1,500. And we don't have a designated path for them. And so when you take the time and you really just communicate with them, this is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to suggest. You told me you wanted to train 2 times. So our lowest package that we have is 12. 12 sessions at 150 is going to be 1,800, 1,500, whatever it is. How do you want to pay for it? And what that confidence is going to come the more times you do this, because when he gives you his black Amex, you're like, oh shit, it worked. But then you set those expectations for the future. Every 12 sessions, we're going to renew. I suggest you actually do 36 because you'll get a little discount. It goes down to 140 per session when you do 36. And so that's the art of sales that we will help you guys get better with as well. Now, do you guys find these helpful? Any feedback, anything you want to see more of? As I said before, I'm doing these selfishly out of case examples in the past because we are making a guidebook that I'm going to put out there and sell. So always opportunities to make more money with streams of revenue.
I have a question.
Hmm?
Yeah. How you do the workouts? Like 1 push-ups, then plank, then goes to pull single arm, side plank, and then go back.
No, so you want to do them in circuits. So that first group that we would do as many push-ups as he could into the plank, and then you rest. And you rest for as long as he's ready to go again. And you're just going to notice that by looking at him. He's going to be, I don't want to go right back into it if he's huffing and puffing. They call it the talk test. When my client can talk easily, he's come back down and recovered. We're going to repeat. All right, Mr. Hank, we're going to do it again. Let's do some push-ups. Because what you're going to find is you're going to need to correct his form on a lot of different things. He's going to be driving through his traps. He's going to be at a T. His butt's going to be sagging. His form's going to be halfway. So it's our job to cue him, maybe lift his hips up, make sure he's in a nice straight line. He's going to do those reps until failure, ideally, and then into the plank, and then you rest, and we do it for 3 rounds. After those 3 rounds, then you go to the single arm one.
Oh, and
I have
all
a
the
question.
things.
Hold on a second. Continue, Angela. That's fine.
Go ahead, Angela.
Okay, thank you. All the routines are like that.
Not all of them. It's as this one is specific to Mr. Grant, whereas typically we would do like if I were to train you, for the folk in here, we're in better shape than the average client. I would do a core pattern, then an accessory, and then I would rest and then repeat 3 rounds and go to the next one, because it fills in the hour nicely. So when you do a nice little warm up for maybe 5 minutes, you do circuit 1, circuit 2, circuit 3. And when you're done with circuit 3, do a little bit of cool down, some static stretching, whatever. And you'll see it takes exactly about an hour.
Okay. Thank you.
Crystal?
That was actually my question. How would you go about training somebody who has, you know, a little bit more experience when it comes to the gym? So they're pretty much more conditioned, but they're looking to lose some fat or gain muscle. Like, are you sticking with the same core pattern template, or you're doing something differently?
Yeah, so do you have an example of male or female?
We'll do female.
Yeah, so if I were to do this one, I would just change this to a step up first, which would be unilateral. I would go into a push up next. And then for B, I would do some type of ab exercise, or maybe like a band walk, depending on what she wanted to do. And then for here, I would do like a hip thrust. Into an A would be a pull up, which would be more eccentric based. I don't like to do more than 3 to 5 eccentrics for a beginner. And then maybe some plank, or opposite of whatever you did in the prior one. So if you did the abdominals, like ab exercise, then I would do the band walk here. If you did the band walk here, I'd put the abs down here. And then I'll end off on the goblets into, maybe you want to do landmine press into jumping jacks here. So you can see this would be a little more challenging, and this would have probably killed Mr. Grant. But I would do, 6 to 8 reps per side. I'll load this up, do your push-ups, because typically most of your female clients won't be able to do push-ups. And if they can, have them crank them out. You can put a band on them, but I would put the band under them, help them with the full range of motion. I don't do them on their knees. We always do them the regular way. There's no such thing as a girl push-up. They're all push-ups. Do the band walk. Since it's a beginner, we don't need to rest as long, but each set I'm going to progressively overload. So maybe I give her 10s in each hand for the step-ups, push-ups, band walk, rest. Now I go to 20, do that for 10 reps per leg in the push-ups into the band walk. Then maybe I give her 25 per arm. She does the step-ups and then the push-ups and band walk. And then I put everything away, and then I go and I do the next one. Start out with 10s on the hip thrust. Okay. Do it for 10, probably 15 reps on the first one. Bring her over to pull-up bar. Do that for 3 to 5. I always ask before I touch my client, help them up there, come down eccentrically, then do your planks. Go back to the hip thrust, add some weight, do it for 12 reps. And they're doing this to the point where they can't do anymore. They're screaming at you. You do it well when your client's like, oh, fuck. And that's good. When you get a curse word out of them, you're doing it right. And you go to the eccentrics for the pull-up, plank, last round, add a little bit more weight. Maybe you want to get engaged as a trainer. I always encourage people to say your client's name at least 3 times. Get involved in each circuit at least once, and then add that service by asking them good questions and keeping them engaged mentally. And so on that 3rd round, maybe they hold the top on that 10th rep and you push down against them isometrically. And then you go into your eccentric pull-ups. The last one, you have them hold. Give them that energy. Make them feel like they're paying you for a reason. They want to come back for you. And then you do that plank. Maybe the last thing is they touch your toes or whatever it may be. For the goblets, I choose a weight that we're going to start out with 20s. I do it for 15 reps. Landmine press, something we haven't done. And then we do some jumping jacks. Add some weight for the goblets. For the landmine, she's really kicking ass. So we do 10 here, we do 10 here, and then we're going to do 10 more squats because she's really, really doing well. And we're almost at the end of the workout. We go into our jumping jacks, and maybe I'm even doing it with her to make her, feel like, oh, that's that camaraderie. And then maybe you want to do like a burpee variation where you jump down, you hold a push up. Okay, get up, and then get back down, and get back up, and get back down, and nice, rest, and then you go. So I think those are the value add that we can put in there as trainers, where I feel trainers are insecure in what they do is they try to make the whole workout like that. But you will know when to kind of spice it up and make it fun. So I don't want you guys to think like the workout shouldn't be fun. I think the trainer's responsibility is to make it fun, and you can do it through your words. You can do it through getting engaged with them.
I see. So the circuit is pretty much a universal theme when training a client.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then so this exercise, don't even think of it as an exercise. It's the pattern. So if it's a girl, I would do a core pattern, meaning For this one, it's a unilateral. For this one, it's a hinge. For this one, it's a squat. I would do that consistently. If it was a guy, I would do a push here. I would do a pull here, and then end off on the leg. So it is individualized, but you will know how to program that based off that person.
Okay.
And we have a lot more of these in the Patreon, and we have a lot online as well. So just keep on going through them, and they'll start kind of making sense for you. And anytime you train a client, you're more than welcome to send me over what you have on paper, and we can go back and forth to help you.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
For someone that can't do a single push-up,
Yep.
I get. I mean, I understand it all, but doing it with the bands. But how many are you thinking you're doing?
The bands are actually not as hard as the eccentrics. So I may be doing 5 to 8 with the bands. You got to factor in shoulder health, their size. If they're a little bigger, then maybe I'll do 3 to 5 reps. Okay. But if I'm working with your stereotypical, let's just say like LA girl, just kind of classified as being kind of soft skinny, I would have them do 5 to 8 of those.
But maybe so like a little bigger girl, 3 to 5-ish.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Start with 3 the first round, see how she does.
Okay.
And then next round go to 5, and then maybe the third round have them do 5 with the band, and then you teach her how to do 1 to 2 by herself eccentrically, so she can do this by herself.
So would the like fully regress would be band then eccentric?
Eccentrics I like to teach so they can do them at home.
Okay.
I would have them do it with the band with me, and then maybe the last one we just go to failure with the eccentric.
Cool.
So you got a full house there, Brandon.
Always.
Any other questions? And as I said before in the past, shoot me over any questions that you have with your own case examples. I'm more than happy to throw some more in here. We have about 45 of them, and we have been posting them on YouTube. We always appreciate the support. So if you do like these, throw out your story, tag us. And until tomorrow, we will see you guys soon. Have a good day.